in June of 1940, Mussolini dragged Italy into the Second World War, and in August of 1940, the fighting in the North African desert started in earnest. The North African desert was a vast and largely empty place, and the conflict quickly became a back and forth affair, dominated by the difficulty of getting supplies to the front line. Italian and later German supplies were landed in Tripoli or Benghazi and taken by lorry 1,000 miles to the front. British supplies came through Suez in Egypt, with direct access to the Egyptian railway network. Though the coastal rail line only ran a little way into the desert and trucks remained essential, trains made the initial distribution of supplies much more straightforward. The British War Department had identified the Stanier 8F as their freight loco of choice. Designed by Sir William Stanier, the 8F was a development of his successful Black 5 design. 852 Stanier 8Fs were built in total and were in use to the last days of steam in 1968. Some have been restored and are in use today, pulling nostalgia specials. 44 8Fs were sent to Egypt on the decks of merchant ships. 2 of them were loaded aboard the steamship Thistlegorm. Few photos exist of Thistlegorm, so this is Thistlemere, built in the same yard to replace Thistlegorm after their loss. The rolling stock loaded consisted of 2 water wagons, one either side of number 1 hold, 2 coal tenders, one either side of number 2 hold, and 2 locomotives, one either side of numbers 3 and 4 holds. And inside those holds were trucks, motorcycles, and much, much more. My dive plan video has a lot more on the cargo. There's a link in the description below. Thistlegorm was loaded in the Clyde and sailed in convoy for Suez. The Mediterranean was impassable to Allied merchant shipping, so she went the long way, all around Africa to the bottom of the Red Sea, where she was met by the anti-aircraft cruiser HMS Carlisle and escorted north to safe Anchorage F, Sha'ab. On the 6th of October 1941, German Heinkel bombers based on Crete attacked Anchorage F. A bomb struck Thistlegorm in an afterhold that was packed with munitions, and the explosion blew her apart. Today, she lies in 30 metres of water, the forward section upright and largely intact, and still full of her wartime cargo. Her afterholds were simply blown apart, and her ultimate stern is now heavily canted to port. Thistlegorm is probably the most visited shipwreck in the world. It's actually said a wreck is worth more tourist income to Egypt than the pyramids of Giza. The rolling stock is largely easy to find. The water tenders are still either side of number 1 hold. This is the starboard water tender. Crushed by water pressure, it's otherwise in good condition, like the other wagons. But somebody thought it would be a good place to moor a dive boat, and it's been pulled partly off the deck. The port water wagon is more deeply crushed, and the deck on which it sits is collapsing into the hold, though it's been like that for the last 30 years. Just behind them are the coal tenders, and this is the port side coal tender. This is the starboard tender. After more than 80 years on the bottom, the wagons are covered in fine marine growth. On the top of both can be seen some of the locomotive driving rods removed for transport back in 1941. The 2 locomotives were blown off the deck and now lie on the seabed, one either side of the wreck in 30 metres of water. portside loco is the most commonly visited. To reach it, swim down the port side of the wreck, follow the blast damage to the seabed level, and the loco is about 20 metres out. But obviously there isn't much of it left. So where's the rest? Swim due south about 40 metres, and there's the boiler. This is what a boiler would have looked like above water, so it's now upside down. Turn it over and it would fit like this. Other bits can be found nearby. Could this be part of the cab? The starboard loco is further forward. Swim over the side of the wreck ahead of the starboard coal wagon to find it. Beside it is this connecting rod. A little way further along the wreck are these wheels. From the wheels, swim directly out from the wreck about 75 metres to find the starboard boiler. This nearby wreckage is too heavy and too big to be the cab, which remains to be found. Thistlegorm's Stanier 8F locomotives were loaded in May 1941 and have now been on the bottom at Sha'ab for over 80 years. One of the great attractions of this extraordinary shipwreck.